Let us do the news. This story from the Sun, and this was hat tip goes to Megalum, who posted this in the Castle Rexworth Discord. The story that broke yesterday: 18-year-old student stabbed to death with a knife after a night out with a football team by a thug who called himself a bad man. A first-year university student was stabbed to death by a man wielding a knife who called himself a bad man, according to a court hearing. Henry Nowak, 18 years old, walking home from a night out with his football team when he was allegedly confronted by 23-year-old Vikram Digwa. That doesn't sound like an English name. That doesn't sound like they're from around here. Photo of the poor lad who passed away. Southampton. Rosso, Mooberry, welcome in. Made it finally, hello. Don't feel good, won't be here long. Voice is soothing. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry to hear you're not feeling good. Hope you feel better soon. Southampton Crown Court heard that Mr. Nowak, a first-year university student from Essex, was recording Snapchat videos for his friends when he encountered his killer. Mr. Digwa was on trial for murder following the incident in Belmont Road, Southampton, on December 3rd last year. Further charged with carrying a knife in public, while his mother, Kiran Kaur, age 53, was accused of assisting an offender by removing the weapon from the scene. They always just go tribal and start looking after their own, with no regard for law and order. Opening the case for the prosecution, Nicholas Lobenberg KC said the victim's own mobile phone captured the moment he met his attacker. The jury was told that Mr. Digwa was openly carrying an extremely large Shastar knife in a sheath over his clothing. At midnight that night, Henry was dead. Prosecutor told the court the student had been fatally stabbed with the very weapon Mr. Digwa had chosen to carry out onto the street. No witnesses saw the physical struggle, but neighbors were alerted by Mr. Nowak's cries that he'd been stabbed and was dying. And tragically, the prosecutor remarked, Henry was right on both counts. The court heard that a wounded Mr. Nowak attempted to escape by climbing over a fence, leaving a trail of blood that suggested he had already been struck. Mr. Digwa was alleged to have aggressively pursued the teenager rather than seeking help for his injuries. Footage recovered from Mr. Nowak's mobile, which was later found in the defendant's pocket, was played to the jury. So the stabbist stole his phone. I see. In the recording, the student is heard singing and yawning before the camera pans to show Mr. Digwa walking away. Mr. Nowak is heard to say, "In it, bad man, what bad man? You're a bad man, say you're a bad man, go on." The defendant is heard to reply, "I am a bad man," before the footage abruptly ends. The prosecution alleged that Mr. Digwa's mother was later seen on video taking the 21-centimeter blade back to the family home. When police arrived at the scene, Mr. Digwa claimed he had been racially abused and attacked by a drunken man. I'm going to press X to doubt on that. Mr. Lobenberg told the jury the defendant offered no assistance to the dying student, instead accusing him of being a racist. Which, I guess that's all you need to justify stabbing someone these days. Officers initially handcuffed the injured teenager and administered first aid before he collapsed and lost consciousness. Despite the efforts of a doctor who arrived by helicopter, Mr. Nowak was declared dead at the scene. Post-mortem exam revealed 4 stab wounds, including 2 to the back of the legs and a cut to the jaw. Forensic analysis found the victim's blood and fatty tissue on the knife, alongside DNA from Mr. Digwa's mother on the sheath. The court heard, in addition to the 21-centimeter blade he was carrying, Mr. Digwa wore a smaller ceremonial kirpan around his neck. Prosecution notes that while Sikhism obliges followers to carry a kirpan, the smaller blade satisfied any religious requirement. So, not a Mohammedan, but a Sikh, apparently. Now, we've been told for a long time these are a rather peaceful lot that don't really mean anyone any harm. But, yeah, not seeing that here. If they're such a peaceful lot, what are they doing carrying around 21-centimeter blades? Digwa, more like Digwad, yes. Yes, they really are just terribly violent individuals. Apparently so. Apparently so. They argued the defendant specifically chose to carry the much larger weapon on the streets of Southampton. In a prepared statement, Mr. Digwa claimed he acted in self-defense after Mr. Nowak launched a drunken, racist attack and pulled off his turban. I'm going to press X to doubt on that. The defendant told police he stabbed out twice while his hair was over his eyes, obscuring his vision. Yeah, pretty sure that's not the time to just start stabbing randomly. However, the prosecution pointed to footage showing Mr. Digwe's hair in a tight bun during the chase, only for it to be down when police arrived. So he's lying. Why has he put his hair down for the arrival of the police? Because he's lying. Jeremy Wainwright, KC defending, argued the knife was within the permitted length for a religious kirpan, asked jurors to consider who initiated the confrontation. So just going to blame the victim. The defense maintains the prosecution must prove Mr. Digwe was not the victim of a racist attack. I don't think that's how that works. Mr. Digwe and his mother deny all charges and the trial continues. Well, of course they do. What do you expect? Pyon Lee, welcome in. Good to see you. How are you? Natalie Sandoval writing about this in the Daily Caller. British police reportedly arrest stabbing victim after alleged attacker plays the race card. British police reportedly handcuffed a dying stabbing victim after his alleged attacker cried racial abuse. That was something that was not talked about in the Sun article. Gosh, I wonder why that happened. I wonder why they failed to report that. 18-year-old Henry Nowak was reportedly returning home from a night out with friends around 11 p.m. December 3rd, 2023, when he was attacked. Prosecution alleges Vikram Digwe, aged 23, stabbed Nowak to death with an 8-inch Sikh ceremonial knife. Sikhs are legally permitted to carry such knives, known as kirpans, in the United Kingdom due to legal religious exemptions. Prosecutors charge Digwe with murder, a charge he denies. I should love to see Christians try to claim some sort of legal religious exemption for guns. I'd love to see the chaos that causes. Digwe's mother, Kiran Kaur, age 53, also on trial, accused of assisting an offender by removing a weapon from the scene, a charge she denies, but of course she would. Video evidence allegedly shows Kaur removing the knife, taking it to the family home, where it was recovered. Nowak allegedly tried to flee by climbing over the fence after the attack, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Prosecution alleges Digwe chose to aggressively pursue Nowak, that's according to the BBC. He didn't seek help from the man he had injured with his sizable knife. Instead, he accused him of being a racist and being drunk. When police arrived at the scene, Nowak was still alive. They arrested and handcuffed him. They arrested and handcuffed the victim after Digwe alleged he was racially abused by Nowak, according to the Daily Mail. Lobenberg said the police attempted first aid after Nowak collapsed. Nonetheless, Nowak died not long after. He might have lived had they just taken him to the A&E. Sternistan, welcome in. Thank you for the redeem. Exemptions for Norman arming swords. There's a thought. The Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 22, verse 36, he who does not have a sword, sell his cloak and buy one. Yes, the words of Jesus Christ. A lot of people don't really want to talk about that particular passage in Luke. The question of whether Nowak hurled racial slurs at Digwe does not seem very relevant to the question of whether Digwe allegedly stabbed a stranger to death. One fails to see how murder could ever constitute a proportional response to heckling. It doesn't. I mean, not to any normal people, but to people in clown world, to people who have a vested interest in maintaining the two-tier policing system that automatically makes you marked for death, automatically just makes you a target to be killed. Your death is justified. Sort of like when they call you a racist or whenever they call you a Nazi or whatever. One must question the wisdom of arresting a dying man because he might have said something racist. If anything, the police need to be brought up on murder charges here because they handcuffed him and just basically left him to die. If they had not instead rushed him to hospital, he might have lived. I believe UK police here are complicit in murder, and the officers need to be brought up on charges. Let's see, what else is happening in the world right now? Big talks going on between the United States and China. James Howard Kunstler writing over on Zero Hedge. If one has learned anything from this week's extravaganza in Beijing, it is that Donald Trump is aggressively realigning world relations so the USA does not end up as one of the losers in the global resource scramble that lurks darkly behind all current events. China doesn't intend to be an eventual loser either, but it's lost a lot of traction lately. The Euro lands are certainly the main losers, embracing loserdom as the old and sick long for death. I mean, so many people have just sort of concluded that Europe is cooked. There's just not much hope left for them, unfortunately. They have just all collectively sort of chosen to commit national suicide because they have just lost the will to live. They've been so arse-blasted with post-World War II neoliberal propaganda that they believe that their survival and their prosperity is somehow an unpardonable sin. And they've been so collectively brainwashed into white guilt that they believe the only way to absolve themselves is to destroy themselves. Europe paid to be invaded and overthrown, basically. India and some of the BRIC countries are looking a little loser-ish right now. It's starting to get pretty rough for India. Talk of energy rationing, that sort of thing from the Indian Prime Minister, which, good. If that's one of the benefits of what's going on in Iran, let's keep it going. I will pay $4 and $5 a gallon for petrol if it means that India can be brought some suffering. Primary resource for all nations scrambling for is oil. Without lavish supplies of oil, you can't have an advanced techno-industrial economy. And as the feckless Eurolanders learned the hard way, there's really no adequate substitute for oil. The flow of oil depends on economically producible reserves of oil, country by country, but also on geographic advantage, as we're learning just now with the Strait of Hormuz crisis. Europe's crude oil production started a permanent decline all the way back in 2001. A lot of people don't really know that. Asia-Pacific production hit a maximum in 2010. It's been on the decline ever since. That's now over 15 years ago. Africa's peak oil production was back in 2008. It's been mostly declining since. Turns out the peak oil story is still real, despite 15 years of shale oil miracles. I don't know about that. I might press X to doubt on that bit. $3.97 a gallon here today. Yeah, close to about $4 a gallon in a lot of places. $5, $6, $7 a gallon if you're over on the west coast. The Persian Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, probably are past the peak. American shale oil in the peaking zone too. Permian Basin in Texas running short of the sweet spots. The Arctic National Wildlife Reserve at ANWR is open for leasing, but it's too expensive to drill and produce in the harsh Arctic region. U.S. Geological Survey estimates recoverable reserves are between 7.7 and 10 billion barrels. And America already consumes roughly 7.5 billion barrels a year, so that is about break even for ANWR. There is Canada, of course. The tar sands. Great White North these days leans rather hostile towards its neighbor to the south. Otherwise, North America's fairly well fully explored oil-wise. Can't be a whole lot of hidden untapped elephant fields out there. On the plus side, America enjoys its geographic advantage, comfortably cushioned between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, far from the maddening crowd of Eurasia. There's lately been a trumpeting of supposed acquisitions of Venezuela, but projected production of U.S. companies there, looking ahead several years, would be under 1 million barrels a day, while the U.S. uses 20.5 million barrels a day. As for Venezuela's jungle-bound oil sands, forget about it. Russia's Ministry of Natural Resources puts its commercially recoverable oil resources at around 80 billion barrels. That's a lot. Leaves Russia in a theoretically favorable place for the short term, at least. China uses 17 million barrels a day, imports 70% of that. Imports of Iranian oil are substantial, but obscured in official statistics due to the evasion of US sanctions. The Hormuz blockade, make no mistake, it has hurt China. That's what a lot of people don't really see about, or just refuse to see or refuse to talk about, with the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Might be hurting some Americans in the short term and a lot of other people surrounding, but the people that are really hurting, that's going to be the Chinese. Vanderwalkie, welcome in. Thank you for checking in over on Kick. Here's how the global resource scramble translates into geopolitical behavior. As has been evident for some time, the US interests are increasingly alienated from Euroland interests and better aligned with Russia. Europe is demonstrably insane these days, roiling with loose talk as it whirls round the drain. Russia under Vladimir Putin looks more like the adult in the room, Even Russia's military operation in Ukraine starts to look rational if you consider how the EU and the CIA started the damn thing in the first place circa 2014 for the very purpose of provoking Russia. President Trump has yearned to normalize relations with Russia since he stepped on stage in 2016, much to the consternation of American neocons, CIA shadowmeisters, and the born-again communists running the Democrat Party, who seem to resent Russia ditching Marxism-Leninism 35 years ago. Can't imagine why. This week, the US and China have mutually proposed to becoming partners rather than rivals on the world scene. Will surely remain mutually wary, but apparently things have changed. Have they, though? Have they really? You forgive me, I don't trust them. I don't trust the Chinese. I really don't trust them. Most urgently, China would like its oil imports from the Persian Gulf restored, and the obvious way to make that happen would be for them to lean on Iran to stop screwing around and come to terms with the US, give up the enriched uranium, stop laying jihad on everybody near and far. We'll know soon enough if China will do that for the United States. We've got some goodies promised for them, like Nvidia chips, soybeans, etc. President Trump is rearranging the global game board bigly. The net result will be the sorting out of winners and losers. Iran's the poster boy for that. Could go either way for them soon and rather sharply. If Iran's jihad-happy leaders just quit fucking around and finding out, they'll have the chance to re-enter the global community as an advanced modern economy with a comfortable standard of living. Or the United States will just blow up whatever's left. As Donald Trump don't trust China. China is us ho. China will probably deliver that message to the Iranians forcefully in the days ahead. There remains, however, that dirty business of America's domestic enemies, of whom we learn more and more each week. This week it was the testimony of whistleblower CIA agent James Erdman that the CIA worked sedulously to conceal the true origins of COVID-19. But imagine my shock. Looks pretty much like what half of America suspected all along. COVID was a trap laid on the nation by its own deep state, mainly the CIA in concert with the rogue Democrat Party, for the express purpose of quitting the 2020 election. I'm shocked. Shocked. Well, no, not that shocked. Related seditious operations apparently continue to this very hour. And if this thing would stop fucking jumping around, former CIA Director John Brennan told MSNBC's Nicole Wallace this week there is still a legion of professionals in the law enforcement environment, the Department of Justice, as well as CIA and other places. The ones who are refusing to follow politically motivated prosecutions, those who are refusing to support any type of political activities on the part of the Trump administration. Did he just admit the conspiracy he kicked off in 2016 is still ongoing? And that he is an active party to it? I think so. You think Joe DeGeneva noticed that down in the DOJ's Southern District of Florida? I mean, really, why is John Brennan still walking around a free man? Why is he not sitting in a prison cell? Or, the president can order certain permanent solutions about certain individuals anytime he likes. Why not just do that and be done with this arsehole? Why not just put an end to it all? Put an end to the madness. Get rid of these people. The longer they are free and walking about, the more trouble they're going to serve for everyone. The more they're going to plot and scheme for something even worse than COVID-19. As they offer flowers in one hand while having a knife in the other. That's putting it mildly. So hard to be a conspiracy theorist nowadays. Yeah, the difference between the news and a conspiracy theorist is just time. About maybe 6 months to a year. Does that mean China's going to stop teaching their school kids that Americans are evil? No. China can't be trusted. They'll stab us in the back, cut them off. Yeah, no, we really just need to finally deliver the crippling blow to China and just topple their regime. Politicians never have the balls of the commoner. Yeah, they don't, they're unable to fully cross the Rubicon. They just ultimately refuse to sink the boats, and therefore they'll never beat the allegations of being controlled opposition. I mean, why else would you not sink the boats? Why else would you not fully cross the Rubicon? Because you're controlled opposition. Or you're just not taking this seriously. It's all just a game to you. Or you are in a woefully naive state to think that, oh, you know, such and such thing will never happen. No, you don't give your enemy any sort of outlet to regroup and come back. And this idea of ceding territory or ceding wins to your opposition so that you can just go fundraise is stupid. Get the fucking job done and be done with it. Just as astoundingly this week, former FBI Director James Comey told CNN's Casey Hunt he still speaks regularly to current FBI employees. Why? Why is he not being cut off? Also, what is he still doing? Roaming around a free man? He palavers with the very agency that is investigating him for serious felonies, such as threatening the life of the US president. Seems a bit out of order, don't you think? Does he long to spend the rest of his life as the captain of the ping-pong team at the Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary? I mean, he must really think that nothing's going to happen to him, and so far he's been proven right, unfortunately. If the enemy goes to ground, leave no ground to go to. Exactly. Crush your enemy totally. Don't ever let them get back up again. Make the victory swift, decisive, and final. Oh yes, there's also this. US and China agree to establish trade and investment boards. US and Chinese leaders agreeing to establish a new board of trade and a parallel board of investment during President Donald Trump's 2-day visit to Beijing. It's a summit that ended as much as it began, with a little pageantry, warm personal rapport between the leaders, modest incremental progress on trade. These new trade boards aim to oversee bilateral purchases, manage trade differences, facilitate deals in non-sensitive sectors, with roughly $30 billion in goods identified, and provide a standing channel to prevent future escalations without constant high-level intervention. These boards were a pre-summit priority pushed by American officials, including the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. They build on the prep talks in South Korea that produce what both sides described as generally balanced, positive outcomes. Chinese state-run media highlighted the agreements as part of efforts to expand practical cooperation and maintain stable economic ties. The development aligns with Xi Jinping's broader push to reframe the bilateral relationship as one of constructive strategic stability, a new guiding vision intended to provide predictability for the next 3 years and beyond. Only 3 years. Emphasizing cooperation as the mainstay while allowing for moderate competition and manageable differences. She described it as positive, sound, constant, and enduring stability that should translate into concrete actions. Damien Demore, welcome in. Good to see you. How are you? We do have some specific deliverables here, alluded to in the other article. China is committed to purchasing 200 Boeing jets. President Trump indicating the order could potentially grow to 750 based on performance. Most visible commercial headline fell short of earlier speculation around larger volumes, drew a muted market reaction. I mean, it's not a lot. 200 to 750 Boeing jets, that's, what, roughly the fleet, or maybe half the fleet of, or maybe even just a portion of a fleet of what you'd find in a commercial airliner. And you just know the Chinese are going to get their grubby little hands on all those Boeing jets, and they're going to rip them apart, piece by piece, reverse engineer everything, and steal all the tech and the IP that Boeing has in these jets, if they haven't already. On the agriculture and energy front, you've got progress on expanded US farm product sales, soybeans, beef, other goods, reports of commitments up to $10 to $50 billion in some readouts, and potential energy deals. Xi told accompanying US CEOs that China's door will only open wider to American businesses, signaling greater market access in mutually beneficial areas. Discussions included pathways for Chinese investment in non-sensitive US sectors, with the Board of Investment intended to provide clearer guidelines and reduce uncertainty from national security reviews. And America apparently needs 500,000 Chinese students in the US, and China should be able to purchase US farmland so that universities and farm prices don't collapse or something. The clip here from Sean Hannity on Fox News. Let me unmute the browser audio for this first. That would help.
I would assume I'm in Beijing if I wanted to buy property near
Oh, he's
one
getting
of their
long in the tooth,
military
isn't he?
installations. I don't think President
No,
Xi.
they wouldn't let you. I don't look. It's not that I love it. You want to see farm prices drop. You want to see farmers lose a lot of money. Just take that out of the market. But they've had a lot of land for a long time. Obama did nothing about it. They bought a lot of it during the Obama administration. He did nothing about it. As far as the students,
And you appear to
it's
be not doing nothing
500,000
about it.
students. They come, good students.
No, they're not really. I've met a lot of Chinese students. They're kind of middling to mediocre at best. That's always been my experience with them.
I could tell them, I don't want any students, is a very insulting thing to say to a
Who cares? Who gives a shit? I don't care if the Chinese fifis get hurt about that. These people are coming over and, you know, they're spying on us. They're acting as spies. They're also taking up spots that could go to native-born American students. And you're saying you're just okay with that? You're okay with the Chinese owning hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of acres of farmland when you can just take it from them? You can just seize it from them. You can just do things.
country. They would then immediately go out and start building universities all over China. But if you don't have
Okay. And you say that like it's some sort of bad thing. You say that like it's like they're not doing that already. I've toured these Chinese universities you speak of, Mr. President, and I can tell you they raise them up about as quickly as they do the ghost cities. For them, it's just a make-work project. It's all just going through the motions, blarping like they're some sort of civilized country. Exactly, you can just do things. Chinese students and tourists are obnoxious. I mean, some of the students I met, fairly decent people. Mind you, this was 10 years ago when Xi was just coming into power and I was doing some international study for my MBA. I mean, the students on an individual level, lovely people. Girls were cute. Kept in touch with a few of them after I left. But, yeah, I do agree. Chinese tourists are absolutely obnoxious. I had to deal with them when I was in Japan. They are quite rude. They're loud. They smoke like chimneys. They spit everywhere. They have no manners. They're constantly pushing everyone out of their way. Especially when they go to do shopping. Someone's looking at something in a jewelry shop that's in one of the glass cases, and, you know, the Chinese just mog them, just move them out, just shove them out of the way, and start yelling for the polite Japanese shop staff, demanding that they come over and serve them. Eminent domain their asses. Yes, welcome in, Jan. I'd love to see foreign student populations at public universities capped at 10% max. That would be nice. I think that would be excellent.
those students, good students, by the way, if you don't, and we do another thing.
Not really. I can't tell you how many professors at my old university that the biggest problems they had with plagiarism and with cheating came from two segments of the student body. And both of them were segments of the international students. They were the Indians and the Chinese. Those students wouldn't know academic honesty if it came up and bit them in the arse.
If they're good and they want to stay in America, we won't give them a green card and things like that.
You shouldn't be giving them green cards anyways, Mr. President. They need to go back. They need to go back to their own countries and take care of their own. Just like Americans need to take care of their own. These 500,000 Chinese students, they don't need to be here. We don't need them. We can do quite well without them.
Not only them, but other countries. But if you want to see a university system die, take 500,000 people out of it. And you know,
Again, Mr. President, you talk about this like it's some sort of bad thing. We've got so many universities in America and even around the world that are barely treading water because they don't provide value for money in the form of a university degree, whether it be undergraduate or graduate. There's a lot of universities that really do deserve to go under because they have just become gigantic grifting diploma mills. In the H-1B program too. Absolutely. They all have to go back.
The ones that won't be hurt are the top schools. The top schools will do fine, but your lower school...
I mean, a survival of the fittest. They're the best for a reason. They'll be fine. They don't need the government's help. The rest of them, they can fail. Trump isn't infallible, needs guardrails like any other president. Yes, especially on something like this, because the things he is saying, this is incredibly stupid. Most Chinese people that showed up here when I was a kid used to be fairly helpful, studious, and respectable part of the workforce. That generation and prior still is. But the ones that are coming now show up and instantly have a sports car. Yeah, something wrong with that. The family's probably engaged in a lot of corruption and graft in the old country. And now they're taking the money and roaching out to somewhere else. And the kids are a bunch of spoiled brats and nouveau riche bastards. They have more money than they have good sense. And so the daddy's just able to drop 100,000 and hey presto, they've got themselves a new sports car. When the rest of us growing up were having to drive beaters and hoopties. There's a Chinese saying that goes, if you can cheat, then cheat. Yes, so much of their culture, so much of their literature. The heroes of their literature, how do they win? How do they beat the bad guy? They cheat. They do dishonorable things. Every fall, the sports car population goes nuts in Lafayette, Indiana, as all the Chinese students buy up all the luxury sports cars from Indianapolis. It's insane the amount of money that they have. And it all just needs to be seized from them. It all needs to be taken away from them and redistributed to the native population.
Your lower, the ones that don't do quite as well, those two, they'll be dying all over the place. I frankly think...
Good. We don't need these places that are just indoctrination centers for bullshit leftist ideology to continue to thrive. I look forward to the day that these shitty universities get closed down and get converted into car parks and office parks and multifamily housing. I look forward to that day because that's what a lot of them deserve to have happen to them. Would rather betray the whole world than let the world betray me. Cao Mengde, the last Grand Chancellor of the Han Dynasty, it was his son Cao Pi, not Cao, that eventually made himself emperor, with help of the previous Emperor Shan, who continued to serve as his advisor, as per imperial tradition. Yeah, all that fucking palace intrigue. I mean, it's like, no wonder the communists just got sick of it all and just said, you know what, the hell with this, we're overthrowing it all.
That it's good that people come from other countries and they learn our culture, and many of them want to stay here. I think it's good. Not everybody agrees with me, and it doesn't sound like a very conservative position. And I'm as conservative. I'm a conservative guy.
It's not a conservative position at all. You're betraying yourself, Mr. President. The Purdue campus looks more like a major urban center with high-rises out of proportion to the region. Yes, you see that with Purdue. You see it, I believe, also with the Liberty University. I think that was over where, in Virginia? I mean, they've had expose articles written about them where people have just admitted to the media, it's like, look, we're not a university. We're a private equity firm. We're a real estate holding company masquerading as a university and, you know, LARPing as this conservative alternative to liberal indoctrination centers known as other universities around the country. Just proving once again that so many people on the right are just a bunch of fucking grifters.
I'm really a common sense guy, I think, more than a conservative guy. I think
well, this isn't common sense, Mr. President.
People understand we want strong borders, we want strong military, we want good education,
And you're not getting any of that by letting 500,000 Chinese students stay here and continue to do the spy activities for the People's Republic. Thank you for the hydrate and stretch, Redeem.
We want low interest rates, we want... But
I think people would argue they worry about, do they have nefarious intentions?
Sure, I know, and we worry about that, and honestly, they do things...
Are you, though? Are you really going to worry about that, Mr. President? I don't think you are. You sort of sound like you're kind of hand-waving that away, like you really just don't care. You kind of sound like you don't care. You kind of sound like you're more interested in getting some sort of deal than you are in doing the right thing.
Do things to them. It's a very, very fine line, the whole thing with students. So they have 500,000.
I don't see why. Just kick them out. Send them all back. Once again, Mr. President, I say to you what your vice president has said in the past. You can just do things.
And our university system does great. You know, it does
No, it doesn't.
great.
It's a joke. It's an overpriced joke, and nobody's getting what they're paying for. And too many people are going into crippling student loan debt that they can't even discharge in bankruptcy. And you now apparently have what's left of the Department of Education that is... It's like, look, there's so much of it out there. You might as well just jubilee the student loan debt. Because people don't have the fucking money to pay the student loan bills. They just don't. The cupboards are bare. It's all gone. And the minute you start demanding people repay those student loans, what a shocker, the economy starts to turn south on us. So you're better off just jubileeing the debt and maybe even finding some way to fuck over the universities in the process. Trump is far too worried about the system, and the system is crushing him instead of him breaking it. Yes, he was elected to break the system. He's not here to preserve the system. None of us give a fuck about the system anymore. We want the system burned down because the system no longer serves our interest anymore. It no longer serves the national interests of the people. What is Trump trying to sell here with this really disconnected word salad? I honestly don't know. I think he's just trying to soothe the nerve of boomers or whoever. I don't know. I'm a boomer and he's pissing me off. Well, you're one of the good ones, Alec. I want judges to be ignored. I want other countries to be told to fuck off. No more money, no more help. Yeah, that's what we voted for. That's what so many of us voted for. We want judges to be, well, more than just judges to be ignored. We want them jailed at this point. At least that's what I want. And that's the moderate solution. The moderate solution is to just jail the judges. It's like, you can be let out when you start doing the right thing. Jail activist judges. At this point, I will settle for jailing all the judges. Jailing anyone who gets in the way of doing what needs to be done.
Put up, take 500,000 students out, and you're gonna see bankruptcies at the lower end of good colleges, but they're not known or whatever. You're gonna have a lot of problems. So it's something I'm always looking at, but it's a very insulting thing to tell a country, we don't want your people in our schools. I mean,
I really don't care, Mr. President. I really don't care. Tell them that. Tell them exactly that. Tell them you're not wanted here. Your people have been behaving badly. You and the government have been behaving badly. And so your people are going to pay the price. We want you to tell the Chinese to fuck off.
I will send you to Jesus.
Tired of being a moderate, quite frankly. Yeah, don't. It really doesn't pay to be a moderate in this day and age. If you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit, Trump probably, yeah, and that seems like we're really being fed a line of bullshit here.
it really is. Now, I'll have people say, oh, that's a terrible thing. You know, it is a very insulting thing. And it's very interesting. It's something didn't come up today. Came up last time. But I will tell you that school systems don't want that to happen because you won't have much of a school system.
All right, Mr. I would assume I'm in Beijing.
That's fine. We already don't have much of a school system in many parts of the country, with schools closing because of a decline in the student population, because so many of them are they're gone now, or you've got parents choosing to homeschool their children or put them in actual schools where they learn something. So all of it's just, this is bullshit. Anyway, despite institutional progress, we've got several high priority issues that saw limited or no resolution. There's been no major summit agreement on advanced AI chip exports. Some US licensing approvals for sales to select Chinese firms occurred around the visit. Jensen Huang from NVIDIA joining the delegation. But export controls remained a sticking point and were not centrally resolved in leader-level talks. On the subject of rare earths, there was no announced extension of the existing truce or easing of Chinese export controls, which continue to affect US chip makers and aerospace firms. This is a lingering vulnerability from prior tariff exchanges. And then there's the Iran conflict. Both leaders expressed a shared desire for stability and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, with Xi showing interest in greater US oil purchases to reduce Middle East dependence, but China had offered no concrete commitments to leverage its influence with Tehran. The foreign ministry in Beijing reiterated support for peace efforts without pledging active intervention. And then there's the other elephant in the room, and that's Taiwan. Competing narratives quickly emerged from the summit, highlighting a persistent gap in how Washington and Beijing frame their relationship. Chinese state media emphasized Taiwan as the most important issue in bilateral ties, with Xi warning Trump that mishandling it could lead to confrontation or even conflict, while reiterating opposition to Taiwan independence. I seriously think they're a paper tiger. I don't think they have the firepower or even the manpower to pull that off. US officials, including the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, reaffirmed that American policy on Taiwan remains unchanged. Who's feeding him these capitulation lines? Someone on his staff has to be doing this. I really don't know. It's one of the most exhausting things about him, how everything is so negotiable to where you can't really sift through and find out what's true and what's bullshit of what he's saying. School system's just a concentration camp at this point. Yeah, it's an open-air prison. It's daycare, while mummy and daddy go off to work, to the wagey cages. Central Asia is right next door. Siberia is right north of them. There's up to 2 million Chinese citizens already living in the Far East. Estimates suggest roughly 200 to 300,000 Chinese nationals and ethnic Chinese living in Siberia. Yes, fascinating to actually go over there and pay a visit. You've got, on one side of the Russian-Chinese border, white Russians whose primary language is Mandarin Chinese, or some dialect of Chinese. And then on the Chinese side of the border, you've got, or even vice versa, you've got white Russians that speak Chinese, and then you've got Chinese who speak Russian. It's fascinating. Serpent ZA and Lao Y86 actually, I think, did a documentary about visiting that particular area of China where it borders Russia, and actually paid a visit to those people and just hung out with them, got to know them, talked with them, and it was really quite interesting. They don't teach how to think, but what to think instead, yes. The White House readout and Trump's public comments focused heavily on international issues such as Iran, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, global energy security, and economic cooperation, including Xi's reported interest in buying more US oil to reduce Middle East dependence, fentanyl precursor controls, and increased agricultural purchases. Now, don't forget, the Chinese have been flooding America and other parts of the Western world with fentanyl. Trump described the relationship as one that's going to be better than ever before. Xi suggested that cooperation benefits both while conflict hurts both. Analysts noting Beijing's spotlight on Taiwan may serve to shape domestic and international perception and divert attention from other sensitive topics like trade imbalances, nuclear issues, and Iran. The strong US business delegation, including Nvidia's Jensen Huang, underscored Washington's priority of securing concrete commercial wins. These divergent readouts reflect each side's strategic messaging priorities. China seeks to reinforce red lines and stability on its terms. The US highlights transactional progress and geopolitical alignment. So, overall, the summit went a long way in stabilizing ties through new dialogue mechanisms, modest commercial wins. President Trump returned with a few modest wins he can highlight domestically ahead of midterms, though the whole Chinese students and farms might be a tough pitch to MAGA. Tough is putting it mildly. It's nigh on impossible. The base is not going to go for that. They're not going to go for that. You got too many voices now, dissenting voices that within the camp that are just like, no, none of this. They all have to go back. Take the farmland from them. Take it all back. Let's see. We did have something else in relation to that. Where was it? Oh, yes. Here we go. From open source intel. New York Post reporter writing about this. Prior to boarding Air Force One to depart Beijing, the entire U.S. delegation disposed of every item provided to them by the Chinese hosts. All gifts, all badges, all pins, all commemorative items, all of them dumped into a trash bin on site. The directive was absolute. No items of Chinese origin permitted aboard the aircraft. Precautions extended beyond the departure itself. Delegation members left all of their personal electronic devices at home before traveling to China, operated exclusively on clean burner phones throughout the duration of the trip. They were not taking any chances on any sort of spy devices possibly being implanted into gifts. Clever, yes. Right, so let's see a few domestic items here. You've got people trolling online. Joey Manorino talking about what's happening in Los Angeles. Thinking about flying to Los Angeles to cast a vote for Spencer Pratt. They don't check ID. I really like the guy and his candidacy. What do you think? I'll just say my name is David or something. Anyone can vote in California. Just a vote. Dude, it's California. Don't stop with just one. Fair. What am I thinking? Americans now trolling LA Mayor Karen Bass. Will be flying to Los Angeles to illegally vote for Spencer Pratt. What are they going to do? ID me? That would be Jim Crow 2.0. I mean, Democrats would do it to the other side. Might as well do it to them first. Eric Doherty writing, if everyone does it, maybe Karen Bass will mandate voter ID, send more police to the polls. Eric Blair writing, she'll do nothing. She wants chaos. She will cheat. In 1983, the Capitol was bombed. She was the ringleader. You know what else is interesting? This bombing was carried out by a left-wing group called the M19. M19 was radicalized by the South Los Angeles Venceremos Brigade. The South Los Angeles Venceremos Brigade was founded by Communist Democrat Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Funny how that works. You've also got this from the California Globe. Democrat Socialists of America, LA chapter, apparently has some sort of takeover plot for Los Angeles, seizing homes, defunding cops, turning the city into a Marxist experiment. It's 40 pages, 99,000 words, lays out an aggressive 6 to 8 year plan to seize control of the nation's second largest city and impose full-blown socialism. It was published back in 2025. It doesn't mince words. Los Angeles is on the burning edge of the economic, climate, and moral crises. The only options are socialism or barbarism. Or, we could just try good old-fashioned liberty and capitalism. The tone is ironic, apocalyptic, and uncompromising. Branding the current democratic establishment, real estate developers, billionaires, non-profits, even some union leaders, as a status quo coalition of capitalist sellouts who have betrayed the working class. DSA-LA, boasting 3,500 members, sees itself as a vanguard, building working class power through a socialist mass organization that'll dominate local elections and grassroots organizing. The manifesto's proposals are nothing short of disastrous for anyone who values private property, public safety, basic economic freedom. DSA demanding creative use of eminent domain to seize privately owned housing, convert it into public or social housing. They'd ban unhosted short-term rentals like Airbnb, slap vacancy taxes on empty units, impose universal rent control statewide, enact automatic rent freezes and eviction moratoriums during any declared emergency. Private and public golf courses would be expropriated for housing or parks. Armed police would be replaced by unarmed social workers for traffic stops and mental health calls. Men's Central Jail would be shuttered without any replacement facilities. They'd just open up the prisons then and let everyone out. Officers involved in any killings would face prosecution, permanent decertification. All drug use decriminalized. Taxpayer-funded safe injection sites rolled out. Plan also calls for city-owned municipal enterprises, the expropriation of corporations in essential sectors like groceries, restaurants, internet services, full public takeover of energy utilities to hit 100% renewables by 2035, banning fossil fuels. So what that translates to in real practical terms, empty shelves at the supermarkets, restaurants basically all closing, internet and energy blackouts, probably strict internet controls in the state of California to decide what you can and cannot see on the internet and what you can and cannot say. Public pensions would divest from defense contractors, war profiteers, fossil fuels. All related contracts would end. Free public transit across buses, trains, and bike shares would be mandated. None of that shit would work. It already doesn't arrive on time. Most of that infrastructure is not even in place. Never has been, never will be. And then radical governance overhaul. Non-citizen immigrants would gain full voting rights in local elections. So, integrity of local elections, completely and totally out the window. No more means testing for child programs. Forced social justice indoctrination for school curricula. So, children who already aren't learning anything would continue to not learn anything. They wouldn't learn anything at all. Former felons automatically regain voting rights. Fundamentally altering democracy in favor of non-citizens and criminals, and eroding and effectively silencing the voice of tax-paying residents. I mean, they really would just create Escape from LA. Commies want something for free. How about helicopter rides? Yes, that's all they deserve. It's not enough to be against communism, you must be actively anti-communist. And that means all communists need to be dropped from helicopters. Meanwhile, over in Virginia, a court has denied the state's request to reinstate congressional maps that would benefit Democrats. They turned down a request from Virginia's Attorney General and other Virginia Democrats to allow the state to use a new congressional map, which would have been expected to strongly favor Democrats in the 2026 elections. No public dissents from the order. The effects of the court's order are likely relatively minimal, because Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, the CIA plant, had already indicated earlier this week the state would not use the 2026 map in the upcoming elections. She's hiding something. They're plotting something. They don't seem too rattled by this, which means likely they've got something up their sleeves. If they really were concerned, they would be sounding the alarm bells about a lot of this. This just sounds like going through the motions. This just sounds like they're confident that they're still going to get their way on things. Let's see, from Yale News, Department of Justice saying the School of Medicine is still discriminating against Asian and white applicants. A Thursday letter from the U.S. Department of Justice cites applicant GPAs and medical exam scores to argue the Yale School of Medicine's admissions practices discriminate based on race. It comes after a year-long DOJ investigation into the medical school's admissions practices in light of the Supreme Court's 2023 ruling that bars universities from considering an applicant's race in admissions decisions. So, since 2023, they've just basically said, fuck you, we're going to discriminate anyway. And yet, the best we can get out of the DOJ is a strongly worded letter to the Yale School of Medicine. And a Yale spokesman says they'll carefully review the DOJ's letter. Translation, they've already put it through the shredder. They've already chucked it in the rubbish bin. DOJ is going to have to do more than just strongly worded letters. They're going to have to send in people with guns and say, you will stop this, or you will be frog-marched into a prison. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, fuck off. Jonathan Turley, published in Zero Hedge. Let's go from the East Coast over to the West Coast of the United States. UCLA Medical School. Thank you for the Redeem Herald. UCLA Medical School accused of racial discrimination in defiance of the Supreme Court. There's a disturbing account of how medical students at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA were subjected to a bizarre class where one of the university's activists in residence showered them with anti-Semitic postings and racist rhetoric. Okay? And now the Justice Department has found the university engaged in systemic racial discrimination in the admission of medical students. DOJ's Civil Rights Division announced the medical school violated Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act by giving preferential treatment to Black and Hispanic applicants. This follows what we saw here with Students for Fair Admissions v. Harvard, which barred race-based admissions. Black and Hispanic admits in some years at UCLA averaged MCAT scores in the 66th to 72nd percentile, while white and Asian students averaged scores in the mid to high 80th percentiles. The whites and Asians did better than the blacks and the Hispanics. The Justice Department found the UCLA medical school leadership discussed how to achieve diversity goals and other strategies after the Supreme Court ruling. In other words, they were trying to figure out how to discriminate even harder against Asian and white students. After the historic ruling in the Harvard and North Carolina cases, administrators and academics admitted what they had long denied, that race was having a major role in admissions. I mean, we all knew it. Everyone knew. It was one of the worst kept secrets. In anticipation of the rulings, many schools, including the California system, eliminated standardized testing. And without objective scores, they have got less ability to identify the use of non-scholastic criteria for admissions. And when you eliminate and devalue standardized testing, admissions officers can use more subjective essays to achieve the same race-based results. So UCLA just basically said to the government, fuck you, we're going to do this anyway. Administrators were already preparing to use essays as an indirect way to achieve the same identifications and preferences in admissions. Essay prompts encourage students to effectively self-identify by discussing incidents where they face discrimination. The shift to the essays would allow the removal of high-scoring students while elevating those with lower scores. This prediction was quickly confirmed. Top candidates were rejected based on their essays. Schools use essays to flag the backgrounds. Faculty and administrators at UCLA and other schools remain adamant in using race-based admissions, and they justify discrimination as being equitable and diverse. So they're not going to stop. Trump administration has said stop with the DEI. Universities, large private corporations have all just basically said, fuck you, we're going to do it anyway. They're not going to stop until they're made to stop. And you're going to have to do more than just send nasty letters over to these people. You are going to have to go in like the US Marshals. You are going to have to go in with guns pointed to these people's heads to say, you will stop or you will go to prison. We will frog march you out of your offices in handcuffs and in shackles, and we will make you do this. You will do this or you will go to prison. I'm offended her name sounds so much like Spamberger, the latter actually good. I wouldn't know, it's been a while since I've had spam. It will take the threat of the most serious consequences to dislodge this academic administration. Yes, you're going to have to send in agents, even troops, with guns. And you are going to have to point those guns at these people's heads and say, stop this or you will go to prison. If you continue to resist, you will die. That is all these people understand. A woke judge admitted to taking a chance on a violent criminal, and then that violent criminal went on a shooting spree. Massachusetts judge openly confessed in court she knew she was rolling the dice giving a light sentence to a career criminal with a 20-year rap sheet packed with violence, guns, and assault convictions. She did it anyway. Now Tyler Brown is back in custody after opening fire with 50 to 60 rounds on a busy Cambridge roadway, critically injuring 2 innocent drivers. The shocking audio released earlier this week comes straight from Brown's 2020 sentencing, hearing after he fired 13 rounds at Boston police officers. Prosecutors had pushed for 10 to 12 years behind bars. The judge gave him just 5. He walked out on parole March 2025. The judge tells Brown directly, quote, I do realize I'm kind of taking a chance on you. When people stand up, police, experienced police officers, experienced probation officers, they tell me this guy's a danger to the community. She went on to acknowledge she could not predict the future, but was still willing to release him, saying she hoped her intuitions would prove correct and that Brown would not endanger other people's lives as he had in the past. Yeah, her women's intuition is complete total bullshit. Also, why the fuck is a woman serving as a judge? Why the fuck is a woman wearing a robe and deciding whether or not people go free or go to prison? This is the problem. Female activists, Karen judges. These people especially are the type of judges that need to be jailed. Brown's record at the time already spanned 2 decades, include violence against both police and civilians, firearms offenses, drugs, assault with a dangerous weapon, a 2014 stabbing, an armed robbery in Michigan. He was already on probation when he shot at officers in 2020. Yet the judge, identified as Janet Saunders, chose leniency over the unanimous warnings from law enforcement professionals on the front lines. This is the predictable outcome of a justice system that treats violent repeat offenders as candidates for redemption experiments, while law-abiding citizens bear the consequences. Blue state judges keep betting against public safety. Americans keep paying with their lives and security. Many have responded to call for judges like this to be charged as accessories when they go lenient on violent career criminals. The pattern is impossible to ignore. Soft on crime policies, activist judges, revolving door justice have turned too many American cities into danger zones. Justice based on how my tummy feels this moment. Emotion, feelings, hunches should not be the source of judgment of the law. Yes, and for so many of these people, especially women, especially effeminate men, emotions are the same as logic. Emotions are the same as logic for these people. And for them, that's how the law should be structured. And that's how you get people saying that others should be jailed because they just give them the ick. Danger zones, the war zones. Yes, the war zones. And it's going to take an army to bring peace back to these war zones. Oh yeah, something from Bloomberg republished in Zero Hedge. Harvard weighing major crackdown on grade inflation. Too many people getting too high a grade. That's the problem. Harvard faculty began voting Tuesday on what may be the most aggressive effort in decades to curb grade inflation. It's a long-running issue that's also drawn attention from the White House as it pushes broader higher ed reforms. The proposal would cap A grades in undergraduate classes at 20% of students, plus 4 additional students. And the move comes after A grades surged at Harvard. About 60% of grades were A's in the 2024-2025 academic year, more than double the rate in 2006. After administrators pushed for stricter grading last fall, that number jumped to 53%. Faculty have 1 week to vote. Results are expected on May 20th. Sounds like we're looking at forced curves at Harvard. Those of you who don't know what forced curves are, in law school, that is very much a thing. And a forced curve works a lot like this. There's only so many A grades that a professor can hand out for a course. And any course in law school, you have one exam at the end. And that's it. That's your grade. You fuck that up, you fail. You fail the whole course. And so when the professor's grading, they only have so many A's they can give out. They can give out a few more B's, lots of C's, and a few F's. Kind of sounds that's the way we're trending here at Harvard. Harvard's decision could influence other elite schools. Yale recently considered an even stricter proposal, but a campus-wide average GPA of 3.0. Earlier efforts at Princeton and Wellesley initially reduced top grades, but would eventually reversed after student backlash. If approved, the policy would take effect in the fall of 2027. Faculty are also voting on allowing some courses to opt out to a satisfactory-unsatisfactory grading system and replacing GPA with percentile rank for academic honors. Highway to the danger zone. Thank you for the redeem, Harold. We've also got this going on. Closing arguments in a high-stakes OpenAI trial. 3 weeks of presented evidence. An Oakland jury has heard final arguments in a high-stakes legal battle. Could have profound impacts on the race for AI. You've got tech moguls Elon Musk and Sam Altman, once friends and partners, in a fledgling AI startup, nearing the climax of a bitter feud over the future of an $852 billion company. There was already a judicial ban on testimony related to AI-induced extinction scenarios, but references to speculative risks still surfaced during the Oakland courtroom proceedings. On the stand, the Tesla CEO Elon Musk told the court, "We don't want to have a Terminator outcome," suggesting humanity would be better off with a Star Trek future written by Gene Roddenberry, rather than something out from the mind of James Cameron. Musk co-founded OpenAI in 2015 with Altman. At the time, both Musk and Altman expressed grave concerns about the unregulated advancement of artificial general intelligence, a hypothetical point at which machines outsmart humans and operate autonomously. Those concerns were the express motivation for founding OpenAI. Open source to prevent consolidation of power, and philanthropic to offset the profit-driven AI race. Musk then sued Altman and Greg Brockman, the president of OpenAI, in 2024, alleging that they bilked him out of $38 million in donations, then restructured it as a for-profit corporation by exclusively licensing their flagship product ChatGPT to Microsoft. In doing so, they betrayed the founding mission. Jury begins deliberations Monday at 8:30 a.m. One little white pill from the recent redistricting that's going on with several states in America. Democrat Representative Steve Cohen of Tennessee announcing he's ending his bid for re-election to Congress. Man's been in the U.S. House for 20 years. This comes days after the Republican-controlled Tennessee legislature approved a new congressional map that dramatically reshapes and effectively dismantles his longtime majority-black 9th District in Memphis. If it's majority-black, what's a Jewish man doing spending 20 years representing them in the House of Representatives? The 76-year-old Cohen described the moment as by far the most difficult in his career as an elected official. Yes, I can only imagine, as he goes off to retirement and still gets to collect his congressional salary for the rest of his life, along with premium medical and retirement benefits that you and I could never even dream of having. He stated he'll retire from public life at the end of his current term. Good riddance. Good riddance. Oh, talk of Democrats. Interesting headline here from the Epoch Times. Everyone in the Democrat Party has money, except the Democrat Party. On April 30th, Maine's Democrat Governor Janet Mills dropped out of the race for a U.S. Senate seat. In a statement about suspending her campaign, Mills was blunt, quote, While I have the drive and passion, commitment and experience, and above all else the fight to continue on, I very simply do not have the one thing that political campaigns unfortunately require today, the financial resources. As Mills said, financial resources matter in today's political environment as campaigns grow more expensive each cycle. I mean, they say for a reason, money is the mother's milk of politics. First quarter financial reports filed in April with the Federal Election Commission show where some of that money is going and where it's not. Democrat candidates across the country are raising large sums of money. Democrat Senate candidates, including Georgia Senator John Ossoff, former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, former Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, are sitting on tens of millions of dollars with zero debt. The party's congressional campaign arms, the Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, which work to elect Democrats to each chamber of Congress, carry zero debt and have tens of millions of dollars in cash. On the Republican side, every major committee has a strong cash position, but the main Democratic National Committee is in debt. The federal filings lay out the numbers. The DNC reported $13.9 million in cash on hand at the end of March. That doesn't seem like a lot today, but compared to the cash on hand versus the debt they have, they've got $18.4 million in debt. So they are roughly $4.5 million underwater. It is the only National Party committee on either side of the aisle carrying any debt at all. Contrast that with the Republican National Committee. They've got $116.8 million in cash. Total debt, $0. National Republican Senatorial Committee, $43 million. National Republican Congressional Committee, $78.2 million. Neither of them has any debt. DSCC on the Democrat side, $36.5 million, zero debt. The DCCC, $69.9 million, zero debt. Both competitive with or ahead of Republican counterparts. And then the gap widens further when individual candidates enter the picture. You've got 6 Democrat Senate candidates, Ossoff, Cooper, Brown, Texas State Representative James Tallarico, former Alaska Representative Mary Peltola, Michigan Senator Mallory McMurdo, all hold a combined roughly $86 million in cash on hand. Every one of them, zero debt. Ossoff alone has $31.7 million, more than double the DNC's cash position, more than enough to cover the National Committee's entire debt. Avis Jones DeWeaver, political scientist and principal of progressive strategic communications firm Nouveau Strategies, said the pattern points to something deeper than a typical post-election slump. He says there's a severe brand problem with the Democrat Party. No shit. Even in the midst of a historically unpopular president, press X to doubt on that, they've managed to find a way to consistently garner lower favorability ratings than Donald Trump. Because so many people out there seem to be talking about how Democrats are going to win big in November, and it's just almost like a fait accompli. I'm not too sure about that. I'm really not too sure about that. It might just... There is still the possibility that Republicans hold seats, maybe even make some gains, if only for the fact that Democrats and their lineup for this election cycle are complete and total shit. Vivian Moon, welcome in. Good to see you. Jones DeWeaver says there's still a chance, there's still a sense the Democrat Party writ large is not rising to an existential moment. They continue to color within the lines of politics as normal when we're far away from normal. So donors are making a deliberate choice. They're shifting their funds from supporting an institution they no longer trust, which is the Democrat National Committee, and they're going to invest in individual candidates that have demonstrated strength in the moment. I mean, they're not really demonstrating much strength. Because, I mean, the current offering, it's pathetic. She says it's not that Democrat donors are tired of giving, it's just they're being much more selective and targeted in their spending. They're going to fund a fight, they're willing to fund a fight, and they're making investments in specific fighters they believe have the best chance carrying them to victory in November. Democrat National Committee Chair Ken Martin says that the committee's debt is manageable and strategically useful, allowing the party to spend early rather than wait until the final months before an election. He says we can pay that debt off whenever the hell we want. Okay, well, why aren't you paying it off now? Why not just pay it off now? He says, I could hold that debt until the end of the year. Reality is there's nothing holding me back in terms of the cash I have, the cash on hand I have to spend it on elections. I mean, why not just get rid of the debt? Just get rid of it. If you can get rid of it whenever you want, get rid of it now. And don't tell me that it's all about voter registration and traditional campaigning, because I don't believe that. I don't think anyone believes that. He was pressed on it too. Someone saying that they're spending more than you have. The Senate and congressional committees for the Democrats and the Senate candidates have plenty of money. They're all doing great. So it seems like this is an issue unique to the DNC, pointing out the unreleased 2024 post-election review as a factor in donor reluctance. Yeah, why don't they just release that report? Why not just release the report? It's commonly referred to as an autopsy of Kamala Harris's loss, which Martin said would be made public when he ran for chair. And then he said he would not release it, and he's just going to focus on future races. Something embarrassing is in that autopsy. And they don't want that getting out. It would be nice if someone would just leak it to the public. That way we can see what it is that they're covering up and just how bad it is. Interesting thing here from Reuters and Yahoo News. Convicted former Harvard scientist rebuilds brain-computer lab in China. An American scientist convicted of lying to U.S. authorities about payments from China while he was at Harvard University has rebuilt his research lab in Shenzhen to pursue technology the Chinese government has identified as a national priority, embedding electronics into the human brain. 67-year-old Charles Lieber is among the world's leading researchers in brain-computer interfaces. The technology has shown promise in treating conditions such as ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and restoring movement in paralyzed patients. But it also has potential military applications. That's what the Chinese care about. Scientists at China's People's Liberation Army have investigated brain interfaces as a way to engineer super soldiers by boosting mental agility and situational awareness, according to the U.S. Defense Department. Yeah, they want to make super soldiers to take on the Americans. So instead of paying their debts where the money can be used by the lenders, not to mention it's the honorable thing to do, this parasite thinks saying they could pay the debt but won't is some kind of flex? I guess so. But you have to remember, they don't give a shit about what is the honorable thing to do. Lieber was found guilty by a jury convicted in December 2021 of making false statements to federal investigators about his ties to a Chinese state program to recruit overseas talent, and tax offenses related to payments he received from a Chinese university. He served all of 2 days, just 2 days, 48 hours in prison, and 6 months under house arrest. He was fined $50,000, ordered to pay $33,600 in restitution to the Internal Revenue Service. During the case, his defense said he was suffering from an incurable lymphoma, which was in remission, and that he was apparently fighting for his life. Yeah, I don't believe that. 3 years after he was sentenced, Reuters has learned that Lieber is now overseeing China's state-funded iBrain, or the Institute for Brain Research, Advanced Interfaces and Neurotechnologies, with access to dedicated nanofabrication equipment and primary research infrastructure unavailable to him at Harvard. The lab is an arm of the Shenzhen Medical Academy of Research and Translation, or SMART. Doesn't sound so sickly to me, chat. Sounds like he's quite alive and well, and thriving, and has been given access to a choice laboratory, a laboratory that most scientists can only dream of. Lieber said of his move to China at a Shenzhen government conference in December, "I arrived on April 28th, 2025 with a dream and not much more. Maybe a couple of bags of clothes." Yeah, your typical classic immigrant story, clothes on your back, blah, blah, blah. "Personally, my own goals are to make Shenzhen a world leader." Lieber, through an assistant, declined an interview request, citing current commitments. He did not respond to written questions from Reuters. Well, of course not. Of course not. Of course he's not going to say anything. He made his getaway. He roached out from America and the West, and he's settled into Shenzhen in China. If he needs a taste of freedom, he can take a train or hire a car or something like that and just hop the border, and he's in Hong Kong, where he's got more breathing room. And if he wants to have himself a good time, he can head over to Macau, do some gambling at the casinos. Smart last year appointed Lieber as an investigator, according to a post on iBrain's website dated the 1st of May 2025. That news, covered by some media outlets, The same day, iBrain said Lieber had also been appointed its founding director, an announcement that went unreported at the time. So he's the head honcho. He's the big cheese now. The story is the most comprehensive account of Lieber's activities since he moved to China. Reuters reporting for the first time his lab has access to dedicated primate research facilities and chip-making equipment. They're experimenting on monkeys, apparently. It sits within a sprawling ecosystem of state-backed institutions bankrolled by billions of dollars in government funding. That's more like billions of yuan in government funding. And it's housed within an institution that is luring top scientific talent back from the United States. I mean, that's always the goal anyways. They grab whatever they can, steal whatever they can, while on some sort of exchange program in the US, and bring it all back to China. 2011, Lieber was named the world's top chemist of the preceding decade in a set of scientific rankings published by Thomson Reuters. Thomson Reuters, which in 2016 sold the business that compiled the rankings, declined to comment. So even Thomson Reuters is so embarrassed by this, they're not even talking to their own reporters at the Reuters newswire. Some analysts say Lieber's ability to reconstitute his laboratory after a federal criminal conviction for lying about his ties to China shows how US safeguards and technology with potential military uses have not kept pace with Chinese government efforts to acquire it. No shit. That concern is amplified because of Beijing's military-civil fusion strategy, whereby civilian scientific resources and research are shared with the military. Glenn Gerstill, non-resident senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, former general counsel to the U.S. National Security Agency from 2015 to 2020, said China has weaponized against us our own openness and our own efforts for innovation. They have flipped that and turned it round against us, and they're taking advantage of it. And now they've got defectors that are basically just settling into plum positions, and they're going to work on developing super soldiers. And this is what Trump wants to ally with. Right. This is what Trump wants to ally and make peace with. The Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology and the Defense Ministry did not respond to questions about China's development of brain-computer interfaces. They're not going to. They never will. Smart and iBrain also did not reply to requests for comment about their research and recruitment of Lieber. Can't imagine why. Lieber's new perch appears to give him richer resources than he had in the United States. That's probably why he defected. And make no mistake, chat, this is a defection. Lieber has defected to the Chinese. In Shenzhen, iBrain in February installed a deep ultraviolet lithography system made by semiconductor equipment giant ASML, according to the lab's website. The Dutch company's machines print tiny circuits essential to cutting-edge chips. At Harvard, Lieber used shared lithography equipment at the university's Center for Nanoscale Systems. The center serves more than 1,600 users annually, according to its website. Now he can just go to ASML, and they'll print whatever he needs for them. iBrain's model is 2 generations behind restricted machines, but still likely to cost around $2 million. ASML tells Reuters it won't comment publicly about its customers. Well, of course not. On that very same campus, Lieber also has access to Brain Science Infrastructure, or BSI, Shenzhen. This is a research laboratory with 2,000 primate cages for 2,000 monkeys, and dedicated space for iBrain's work, according to the latter's website. Many researchers in the field consider primate trials a prerequisite for human trials for invasive brain-computer interfaces. The BSI facility is part of the Chinese Academy of Sciences and funded by the Shenzhen government. None of them responded to questions about brain-computer interface technology and the role of primate research in its development. And they never will. Not if they value their lives and their freedom. The minute any of these people get caught talking to the media, the Chinese Communist Party, People's Liberation Army, their special police, they will swoop in, grab them, and off they go to a prison camp. The EU refuses to release documents on such things being made through research sponsored by the EU. It's sensitive stuff, and in some circles, probably even top secret. So it is a bit understandable why nobody wants to talk about this. Domestic and international researchers have been recruited by iBrain for electrophysiology studies on rhesus monkeys as models for human brain-computer interfaces. This is according to a post in September 2025 on his website, which invites prospective applicants to contact Lieber. There's no indication that Lieber conducted primate research at Harvard. Can't rule it out, though. The elite Massachusetts University closed its New England Primate Research Center in 2015 under sustained pressure over animal welfare and funding challenges. Now, the Chinese don't give a shit about animal welfare and about animal rights. We already know they don't give a shit about the environment. So, yeah, they're just like, oi, Lieber, come over here. And you can do whatever the fuck you want with these monkeys. You can torture them all day for all we care. Just get the fucking work done. Jungmin Lee, a researcher who co-authored nanofabrication papers with Lieber at Harvard, has joined him at iBrain as a research associate professor, according to the website. Lee, who quite conveniently could not be reached for comment, is an expert at stitching flexible electronics into brain tissue. What do we want to bet that Mr. Lee was probably one of the people that recruited Lieber, made the initial overtures of, oi, Lieber, let's go on back to China. Harvard University also did not respond to Reuters' questions about Lieber and Lee. Can't imagine why. While they don't like the harming of the animals, this is what they're worried about? Yes, it's like that Bob Page line from Deus Ex. The Americans and the Westerners' ethical inflexibility allows the Chinese to make progress in areas that we refuse to consider. John Donahue, Brown University professor, neuroscientist who pioneered a brain-computer interface system known as BrainGate, said primate work is absolutely critical in translating neural interface technology to humans, but faces regulatory and funding hurdles in the US. He told Reuters, with so many hassles with non-human primate research here, to have somebody give you all this support, access to technology, a concentrated center, a national initiative, those are things that are very attractive. Smart's 2026 budget, funded entirely by the Shenzhen government, rose nearly 18% to $153 million. I mean, it's like a small-scale version of the Philosopher's Legacy from Metal Gear Solid 3. $153 million. You can get a lot of research done with that kind of money. The Academy's budget papers don't indicate the proportion of that funding dedicated to iBrain. I'm safe to speculate it is a lot. SMART was established in 2023 under founding president Niang Yan, structural biologist, who returned to China a year earlier after 5 years at Princeton University, was hailed in domestic media as the homecoming of a goddess scientist. Yan and Princeton didn't reply to Reuters' questions about her role at Shenzhen and the recruitment of Lieber, so she probably had a hand in recruiting him as well. But hey, we need 500,000 Chinese students in America. We gotta have them, according to the American president. Alongside SMART sits the legally separate but functionally twinned Shenzhen Bay Laboratory, which launched in 2019 with a 5-year budget from Shenzhen's government of around $2 billion with a B dollars. Both based in Guangming Science City, a national science hub of manicured parks and waterways, an entire city constructed to be nothing but laboratories and research institutes. The two institutions share the same leadership and offices. They will also occupy a dedicated 750,000 square meter site that is currently under construction at a planned cost of $1.25 billion. Shenzhen Bay Laboratory did not respond to a request for comment. What a surprise. Nobody's responded to any requests for comments here. No one's talking, and they're not going to. Signs guiding visitors to SMART's premises are emblazoned with the slogan, "Innovate with the Party." In other words, they're referring to the Communist Party of China. A Reuters reporter was denied access to iBrain's offices whilst trying to deliver a letter to Lieber. Lieber joins at least 6 others who have moved to SMART from US institutions, though all of them are Chinese-born researchers returning home. And it's probably going to stay that way. People like Lieber are just token Westerners. They're there because they're useful to the CCP. Once their usefulness has expired, they'll be kicked out, sent packing back to wherever they came from, or they'll just be disappeared if they know too much. China named brain-computer interface technology a national growth priority in the new 5-year plan in March 2026. Xing Shanji, head of China's National Development and Reform Commission, said in October, the rise of brain-computer interfaces and related technologies will be equivalent to creating another Chinese high-tech sector in the next 10 years. DARPA in the US is also investing in brain-computer interfaces for drone and cyber defense applications. Research projects led by Lieber at Harvard received over $8 million in funding from the Defense Department since 2009, according to court documents. The Pentagon did not respond to questions about the technology's military uses and Lieber's role in Shenzhen. And they're not going to. That is probably a major source of embarrassment for the Pentagon. Let's see. Lieber's 2021 conviction was one of a few wins for the Justice Department's China initiative launched during the first Trump administration to counter Chinese economic espionage and intellectual property theft. The initiative was wound down under President Joe Biden, after a record of failures and criticism for racial profiling. Also, the Biden administration was totally in bed with the Chinese. While still in supervised release, Lieber obtained court approval for at least 3 trips to China in 2024, including one that U.S. District Judge Denise Cusper granted for employment networking. Another female Karen judge letting a criminal go to China to go job hunting, to basically go sell his talents to the communists. And what a surprise, Judge Cusper did not respond to a request for comment, because she knows first question she would face is, you done fucked up. You know you fucked up, right? You do know that, don't you? You know you fucked up, right? You fucked up, right? You know that, don't you? Lieber's defense team said in a pre-sentencing memorandum in 2023, the scientist had been suffering from lymphoma and was largely confined to his home, leaving only for medical appointments, brief walks, and occasional visits to a local farm. Yet somehow, he has the strength and the stamina to endure, 13, 14, 15-hour plane ride, probably multiple hops, to go to China, to go job hunting. Make it make sense. I'm sorry, but if you're suffering from lymphoma, you don't need to be traveling to the other side of the world to fucking China to go job hunting. One of these things is true and the other thing is a lie. I'm fairly certain the whole suffering from lymphoma thing is a lie. During a 30-year career at Harvard, he spent over 80 hours a week in the lab. When not working, Lieber spent time coaching, wrestling, and growing giant pumpkins in the backyard, according to his defense. I'm sure his dog loves him too. Lieber acknowledged being young and stupid and getting involved with China's 1,000 Talents program, a state-backed initiative to recruit overseas experts, his lawyer told the court in 2021. Was he, though? Was he really? When he was arrested in 2020, Lieber told FBI agents he wanted to win a Nobel Prize and be recognized for his work, according to prosecutors. Yeah, I just don't believe you. It's almost like a suicidal leftist plot to provoke an American nationalist takeover. Yeah. That doesn't seem too far off the mark. The FBI declined to comment. Justice Department did not respond to questions. Some analysts say the Lieber case illustrates a broader failure of U.S. policy. Well, no shit. Emily de la Bruyere, co-founder of China-focused consultancy Horizon Advisory, senior fellow at the Washington-based Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, a non-profit research institute considered hawkish on foreign policy, said if you think of him as a vector for tech acquisition that runs contrary to U.S. interests, we identified that, punished him, then did nothing to stop the big picture trend. A former U.S. official described Lieber as Exhibit A in how U.S. legal tools are inadequate, saying this is a guy who was convicted of precisely the thing we want him to be convicted of in this context, and yet the minute he is released from house arrest, he's off to China. We are not dealing with serious people in the American government. We're just not. The deep state is still alive and well, the swamp has not been drained, and there is no reason to believe it ever will.